There you go.
for y'all. And then let's see. Do you want me to put it on Facebook? Do we do that, or just the recording is good?
So recording is good.
Okay. Okay, and I have the chat and the participants up, and we are in good shape. All right. Okay, if you just joined, we are just starting. You did miss, however, that this is my favorite of the 4 models of the Millionaire Real Estate Agent. We're going to start with just a little bit of background today. So this video will be available soon to a YouTube page near you. We've got 2 more sessions left. And I do believe that our first session, is it on the YouTube channel already, Jess? Do we know? Bailey says yes. Awesome. Okay. So here's what you're going to need today. You're going to need a pen and paper, not just to take notes, but we've got an exercise at the end of class that you're going to start kind of doing some building out your own lead generation model. Okay. You'll need a calculator today and your MREA book. The way that we've set up this class is you'll actually get page numbers also when we're talking about different pieces of the model. So if there's something that stands out to you as being really important or that you want to visit, you can bookmark that page right off the bat. And forgive me just another second here. I'm just rearranging my screen so that I can see everybody. There we go. And we can, and I can see this. So the Millionaire Real Estate Agent book is what these models are based off of. And what is the Millionaire Real Estate Agent book about, right? At the end of the day, it's about these pieces. Think big, aim high, act bold, and live large. There's a phenomenal story on page 21 and 22 about the value of aiming high. But so the Millionaire Real Estate Agent journey started, quite some years ago. And Gary Keller and the team at KWRI set out to write originally what they thought was kind of going to be a white paper, a research paper, and turned into a book. It turned into a book because they found just so much gold in there. It needed to be published. And they wanted to know what makes successful real estate agents successful. And of course, the best way to do that is to talk to enough of them and see what they do. And so they interviewed a large sampling of real estate agents who had netted or grossed $1 million or more in their real estate business annually. From everywhere in the country and all different real estate brokerages. And through this interview process, they really uncovered a couple of truths. And the first was that they all did business differently, right? They all had a different kind of business. Their business all came from, kind of different places. They had different niches. They had different local real estate variation that impacted their business. But the other truth was that underneath all of that, their businesses looked really similar. There were a lot of things that they had in common with one another in the way that they ran business. And those things that they had in common are what turned into the 4 models of the Millionaire Real Estate Agent book. And those are the models that we're gonna cover. And so when we think about models, page 35 through 38 in your MREA is where Gary kind of shares what his view on models are, right? And he says that modeling is the cornerstone of success in your business and a proven foundation for success. And when you build your business on a model, it really means that you're not reinventing the wheel. You're seeing what somebody else has done and done successfully, and you're kind of duplicating that. And then you add creativity on top of that. You're able to add your own flair to it once you've got a stable foundation in place. Oftentimes in our real estate businesses, we can sometimes feel like we're guessing a little bit on the success we might have doing a particular activity, or we have a hard time gaining traction in an area. And it may very well be that what we're doing is we are coming with our creativity first instead of looking at a model. Right. And so we are the ones figuring it out and bumping our head against the ceiling and really, kind of failing forward through that instead of building it on that solid foundation. Which brings me to hitting your head on that ceiling, right? Page 38 and 39 talk about natural ability and achievement ceilings. And if you've been around Keller Williams for a while, you might recognize this graphic. This conversation that was explored initially through the Millionaire Real Estate Agent book made its way into our 6 personal perspectives. And this is the E to P perspective, which means going from entrepreneurial to purposeful. Okay. When we go from entrepreneurial to purposeful, what we're really doing is we are implementing a model in our business that helps us break through that ceiling of achievement. Okay. We do as well as we can with the natural skills and talent and knowledge that we have. And then to get to the next level, we utilize a successful model to get there. And there's today we're going to talk about those foundational models that help us have success. If you want to dive deeper into these last couple of sections, right? Thinking big, models versus creativity, and the this natural ability and achievement ceiling, then I encourage you to check out the video from last week where we went into a little more depth. But I kept these in here. We're going to revisit this every week because they're really important to the foundation of growing our real estate business and why models can be just so important to what we do. So the 4 fundamental models that we are going to talk about in the Millionaire Real Estate Agent, you can remember by thinking about your elbow, right? Elbow for these 4 models, ELBO, economic, lead generation, budget, and organizational. Elbow. So the economic model where we were last week is all about what activities need to happen in my world so that I can achieve that goal. And it breaks that goal down into that financial goal down into how many units need to close, how many agreements do I need to have, and how many appointments do I need to go on to make all of that happen. And that's just a really simple economic model that works for any type of business, real estate, any other service industry business, any widget you're selling, right? You can really break down how much you want to make into those fundamental parts. And with that economic model, you can start to predict and kind of make some changes inside of your business, right? If you want to make more money, what does that mean as far as, how many appointments you need to go on, and you can start to adjust there, which leads directly into the lead generation model. Right? So I know that I need X number of appointments. How do I get them? What lead generation activities do I need to get there? And what are the statistics around those lead generation activities? And how do I know how much of that I need to do? Right? Which obviously leads us to a conversation about money. Right? Our budget model. Where does our money go in our business, and how much do we spend on what? I regularly consult with agents who will tell me that, oh, it's just one more transaction a year, right? If I get one more piece of business from this, whatever I'm spending money on, it's going to be worth it, right? The reality is you may be building the type of business that's unsustainable, especially from a financial standpoint, and especially if that one piece of business doesn't show up. Right. So we dive into that budget model, and funny thing, the top agents who were making more than $1 million a year, they all kind of spent their money in similar places to get the biggest return on their investment. So we'll take a look at some of those pieces as well when we get to the budget model next week. And then it's all about the people. People make this world go round, and your organizational model is all about the people in your organization. And whether you know it or not, you have an organizational model for your business, even if it's a business of one. But what happens when your business grows, and how can you actually grow this really successfully with others inside of your business? And so we take a look at that organizational model. And, the weirdest thing is that all of these kind of tie together. They create this cycle where each one of these models is really dependent upon the other, right? If I add more people to my business, that impacts the organizational model, but it probably also impacts the economic model. I might have to do more units to support having another person on there. And if I'm doing more units, well, then my lead generation probably changes. So I have to look at my lead generation model. And then, if I have more people and I'm doing different lead generation, that probably impacts my budget. Right. And likewise, if I change my budget, what does that mean for the people in my organization or the lead generation I'm doing, how many units I'll do? And they all kind of feed together. Right. So some of the key areas when we looked at the economic model was, what are the numbers we need to hit in our business? And the economic model helps us get real clarity on what are those key metrics. And then we dial it all the way down to how many appointments do I have to go on to meet those metrics, right? With a focus on our skill and conversion rates. Right? So how can I hit those metrics and actually go on fewer appointments? Or if I go on that many appointments and I increase my conversion rates, can I actually increase what I'm doing? And so those were the key areas that we looked at. Today, we're gonna look at prospecting and marketing. We're gonna talk about your database and focusing on seller listings. Okay. In the budget model, we look at leading with revenue. We'll talk about playing red light, green light, and sticking to our budget in our business. And that's next week. And the week after, when we talk about the organizational model, it's when do we start bringing people into our business? How do we hire talent? And then how do we help them succeed through training and consulting? Okay. So all of these pieces tie together. And you can find more about this on page 122 and 123. So let's dive in to the lead generation model, and just kind of go back on this. This is why I think the lead generation model is my favorite. You can screw up kind of everywhere else. In every one of these models, you can get it right or you can get it wrong. But if you get it right in the lead generation model, all of the other ones are kind of going to fall into place. If you're doing the activities inside of the lead generation model, if you are systematically communicating with your database, if you are feeding it and growing it and nurturing it the way you're supposed to, all of these other things just kind of fall into place. Obviously, you want to have awareness around them and all of those pieces, but you can nail your economic model. But if you're not actually nailing your lead generation model, then how are you going to hold all of your appointments that you need for your economic model, right? How is that going to happen? If you're not following your lead generation model and you're just willy-nilly doing whatever it takes to get an appointment, then what happens to your budget model, right? You're probably spending money in an out of control manner and continuously on if I get one more deal basis, right? And if you're nailing your lead generation model, then the right organizational model will come to fruition, because you're going to need that support in your business, and you're going to be able to see immediately where the highest need for that support is. So I think the lead generation model is the one that has the greatest impact on your business. And if you nail this one, you're well on your way to being a millionaire real estate agent. This is where all the magic happens, is in the lead generation model. So are you guys ready to go make some magic in your business? Yeah, okay. Christine's ready. She's going to make some magic in her business. Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's talk about the lead generation model. Okay, so the lead generation model shows up in your book twice. Okay, you'll have a section talking about the lead generation model, and that is, I'm going to kind of pull it up here, starts about page 133. Okay, and then you have a place that talks about the millionaire real estate agent lead generation model. Those two models go hand in hand, and we're going to cover both of those sections here today. They tie together. So so you'll see the pages starting at 133, and 185 is the next one, the MREA lead gen model. So why is the lead generation model important, and what is it about? Well, it's about mind share and creating mind share for others. And it works synergistically with the economic model. So if you know how many appointments you need to close so many units, we can actually work that backwards and determine what kind of lead generation and how many people need to be in your database. Spoiler alert, we're going to have some fun with that later. It's one of the things you'll need your calculator for. Okay. It's about generating mind share. You can learn more about this on page 134, right? But I'm gonna stop sharing there for just a second. I want to draw something out for you guys about the importance of mind share. This is something I can't take the credit for this. This is something that I saw one of the leaders in our company, Jason Abrams, draw. And I'll tell you, there's nothing that's really illustrated the importance of mind share better to me. So I want to share this with you guys too. So imagine that this is your client's real estate life cycle, right? And these peaks and valleys, that's their interest in real estate, right? And at their peak interest in real estate, that's when they do a real estate transaction. And the next day after they're closed, that's very likely their lowest interest in another real estate transaction, right? Would you guys agree? Now, obviously, there's some, there's some variation inside of that. So, what if it's an investor, right? And they're going to buy multiple properties, or let's say they have to buy and sell. But you kind of get the point, right? So they have a high interest in real estate. They satisfy that need, and they're down to their lowest interest in real estate. And then at some point, they're going to be up here again, and they're going to make another real estate transaction. And the distance between these two dots is that timing, right? How long is it between real estate transactions? Well, NAR says right now that that's like 9 years, 10 years, right? But we know in this business that if that first purchase was let's say a first-time home buyer, right? They're in their home fewer years typically than somebody who's just purchased their move-up home. So that might be 3 years, right? It could be 2 years, it could be 5 years, could be something like that. We also know that, that people stay kind of in that forever home for longer, right? They might be in a home for 15 plus years, but during that time, maybe they're buying a vacation home or an investment property, right? So they may have some other real estate needs. So one of the challenges is we don't know where anybody is in this cycle. We could be talking to them here or here, right? And when we start talking to them down here, we typically will say, oh, well, that's a bad lead, or they're not doing any business right now, right? So let's say I met somebody at an open house, or they were like a Facebook lead or something like that. Well, they're gonna do real estate at some point, but they're just now starting to get interested in real estate. So they're on their way up to that. So it might be a period of time. It could be 6 months, it could be 18 months, it could be 3 years, right? Before they make it up that hill. And sometimes we meet somebody here and we get really excited because that's a good lead, right? Well, you know, they're just closer to that real estate transaction and maybe they're a little more serious now. But everywhere in the cycle, they are meeting real estate agents, right? If they're your past client, then they met you, right? They met you at closing. And if you're doing your job as an agent, then you're probably, you know, have some sort of past client communication system. You're dripping on them maybe. And, you know, if you're like the vast majority of agents, then over the years, that contact becomes less and less consistent, right? If you're one of the agents who are using command to follow up with your agents, then that's probably not the case, right? But what else happens? What else happens in there? What other real estate stimuli happen inside of there? Well, what are the chances there's an open house in the neighborhood and they stop at that open house, right? Well, there we go. So there was an open house and they went there and they went there to that open house and they go there. What about, I don't know if your grocery store does this, but my grocery store, there's always a really attractive realtor who rents out the little card on the basket, right? They're on the shopping cart, right? So I go to the grocery store and I see the realtor there. For the life of me, I can't remember her name, but I mean, I know she's there. Oh, and then my sister, brother, cousins, aunts, uncle got their real estate license and they're talking to me about real estate. And then you know, oh, that nice agent who sells a lot of homes in my neighborhood. Well, they knocked on the door a couple of times. And so I talked to them. And then, oh, what else happened? Well, you know, I was kind of curious. I was kind of curious what my house might be worth. And so, you know, so I put my address in Zillow and now I'm getting Zillow emails. So I'm getting all of this real estate communication, right? So here's the challenge. When they get here and they are serious about doing a real estate transaction, look at all of that noise. And if you are not systematically communicating with them to stay top of mind, then when they're serious about real estate, they might work with somebody else. Right? And so I love this example because I think there's nothing else that I've seen that shows me just how important it is for us to stay in touch, to have regular communication with our clients, to create that mind share. Right? You'll see this as well in the book, right? And the stats aren't much different today, mind you. Typically, a buyer or a seller, buyers particularly, will only interview 1 or 2 agents, right? So if you're not 1 or 2 that they think of, how are they going to get to know you? How are you going to get the opportunity to interview for the job of listing their house, right? Or helping them buy a home. So at any rate, that's the importance of that mind share. And so today what we're going to do is we're going to talk about different ways to collect that mind share through the lead generation model. Okay, here you go. These are the 4 laws of real estate lead generation. Build a database. That's the very first one. If you aren't communicating with your people systematically through a database, if they're just living in your phone or on an Excel spreadsheet, then there is no way over the course of 3 or 7 years, you're going to be consistent enough to have that mind share with your clients to be there when they get serious about real estate, right? Feed that database every day. It's all about meeting new people and having real estate conversations. That's what our job is. So feed that database every day. We're going to talk about some ways you can feed it today, but make sure you're feeding it every day. Because if it's not growing, it's dying, right? You saw all of those other lines in the graph. Those were other databases that your client was in. And the second they choose to work with another agent, then they're out of your database. They're no longer receptive to your message. They've chosen a different one, right? Okay, communicate to it in a systematic way, right? We're gonna talk about that today. We're gonna look at the models. Obviously, when you're using a tool like Command, it makes it easy to do this. And we're gonna take a look at some of that too. And then service all the leads that come your way, because I promise if you're doing those 3 things, they're coming your way, right? You're communicating with them systematically. You are earning the right to be in business with them. So you can find this on page 188. Well, so here we go. What are the 3 key areas of the lead generation model? The first is to prospect and market, right? Prospecting and marketing allows you to feed your database. It's all about meeting people. Set up that database and feed it. So we're gonna take a look at the setup of your database as well today, and systematically market to your database. We're gonna break that down as well and what that systematic communication looks like. All right, do you guys got your page numbers here? Awesome. Let's dive in. So let's start with a prospecting based and marketing enhanced approach. Now, what's the difference between prospecting and marketing? Who wants to share that with me? What's the difference between prospecting and marketing?
Marketing is the message that you're sending out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's outgoing, right? Marketing is outbound, and prospecting is more inbound. Think about it like attracting and hunting, right? I can do a couple of things, right? If I'm really hungry, I can create an environment that would lure a rabbit into a trap, and I can attract them in, right? I can put out some beautiful carrots in a lovely trap and catch a rabbit, right? Or I can go hunting, and I can actively look for my food, right? Obviously, we're not doing that these days, right? I'm going to go to the grocery store instead, and rabbit's probably not on the menu. But it's the same thing in our real estate business, right? So going out and actively searching for a new business would be prospecting, and then creating a message where you can be found and others would be attracted to you is marketing. So you can think of this as passive and active, and they work well together, right? There are strategies that are both marketing and prospecting that work very, very well. The benefit of prospecting over marketing, right, can be that it is typically less expensive, right? I can prospect at very little cost, and marketing almost always has a price tag involved. Okay, so that's one of the pieces. I can get immediate results with prospecting, right? I can hold an open house today in which an unrepresented buyer may attend, and I can get immediate business. I can be making telephone calls today, right? And find a referral for real estate business. That's prospecting. But if I put an ad on the newspaper, right, or I'm on a bus bench, or I'm just putting flyers um, in the mailboxes, or maybe you got one of my just listed or just sold postcards. Well, over time that might attract somebody to me, but it's unlikely that it's going to generate a piece of today business. Okay, so those are some of the differences between prospecting and marketing. They both have a place inside of your lead generation plan, right? However, when you base that plan on prospecting based activities, you have a greater level of control over what the outcome is going to be. So some things to keep in mind. And as we move forward, most agents find when they interview top real estate agents, they find consistently that their business only comes from a handful of lead sources. So, you guys may have heard of the 80-20 rule, right? Where 20% of your activities yield 80% of your results. And that's exactly what shows up here. There are going to be areas in your business that you're going to focus the majority of your lead generation energy and activity, and those are going to yield the highest results for you. But it's really specific, right? That number one line there is sphere of influence, people that already know you, that you already have a relationship with. That's the number one category where people get their real estate business. Now, this could be friends, family member, people you've already had a relationship with, or past clients. That second largest category is referral business, right? Coming from your sphere of influence, instead of them working with you directly, they're giving you a referral. So number 1 and 2 come from your sphere of influence, right? And number 3 and 4, those would be prospecting based activities that feed your sphere of influence. So it's really fair to say that the vast majority of your business is going to come from the way you are communicating with your sphere systematically, which is where we really dive in on the lead generation model here. So on page 138, you can find this. It's probably a little easier to read, right, than this is on your screen. But these are a list of prospecting and marketing activities. Now, this list was created a little while ago, so it's going to miss some activities like social media ads and, YouTube videos, right? So you can go through this and update it a little bit, right? However, on the prospecting side, most of those activities are still just as effective now as they were then. On the marketing side, some of the names have changed, but the strategies remain the same. You're probably not putting ads in the newspaper these days, but you'd be putting ads in social media instead, right? So some things to be able to consider here. And this is something I want you to bookmark so that you can come back to it as you're preparing your plan. What does your mix of prospecting and marketing activities look like? And how are you bringing those in to do two things: to meet new people and to communicate with them systematically? Okay. So how does this work, right? This is the lead generation model, right? And inside of the lead generation model, it's all about your database. Remember, the first law of lead generation is build a database and feed it every day, right? Build a database. So this is what it means. When you build your database, you have a platform where leads come into the top. Now, what is a lead? A lead is someone who has actually raised their hand and has a potential interest in real estate business, right? This could be anyone that you meet. It could be someone you meet in the context of real estate or not, somebody that you meet personally. It could be somebody that you've met through prospecting activities or through marketing activities, right? Did you call somebody? That's a prospecting activity. Or did they, did they click on a link on the internet and make it into your website, right? That would be more of a marketing based activity. Once you have a lead through prospecting and marketing based activities, you get the opportunity to create a relationship with them, right? Once you've created that relationship, established value, and you've had contact with them, they move from being a lead to a contact, which means I have two-way communication, right? A lead may be very passive. They might have filled out a form once and they're not yet responding to you. Okay. You might have met them at an open house, but they haven't returned your call. And, the last couple of times you've reached out, they're just still a lead, right? They may do business with you, but a contact is somebody that you've had two-way conversations with and you're starting to develop a relationship. Well, so what happens is through this, you stay in touch with them systematically, right? Which is one of the laws of lead generation. And it allows you to increase the level of your relationship so that when they have a real estate need, you're ready to have that real estate conversation. That's step 3. And from there, they'll either do business with you or they may refer somebody who does. And that creates step 4, where you get new and repeat business, or they generate referrals and they then become part of your sphere. So that's the model of the database. And, you don't have to rethink this or create it from scratch, right? The beauty is that Command builds this out for us, right? We've already got this database model in there. And so, so part of the lead generation model and building our database is classifying our people. We've got to know who our audience is if we're going to communicate with them systematically. And so this is the model for the lead generation model for who are your people, how do you classify them, and how do you stay in touch with them. So you can find more about this on page 137. So I'm going to start in the outside or in the inside and work my way out. Okay. And I'm going to start with that center group, that MET group. Inside of that MET group is our allied resources. Okay. As you can imagine, someone that's in this MET group is someone that I've met. I know them. I've had a conversation with them, right? I have met them. They're no longer a lead or someone I have not met, right? So I have met them. So inside that MET group is that allied resources. And you'll see it says there that they're going to get one-on-one contact from me. Okay. So inside of that allied resources, that's your sphere of influence. Okay. So these are friends, family members, past clients, right? These are people who you have a close relationship with. It's also your business partners, right? So it could be any of the vendors or allied resources in your business, right? Is it your photographer? Is it your transaction coordinator? Is it your, is it your roofer? Who is it? Who's in your business, in your world, where you have a mutual understanding that I'm supporting your business and it supports my business, right? So your allied resources and your METS group. The rest of your METS group, as you're zooming out here, would be others that you've met that wouldn't really classify as like my sphere of influence. They're not a friend or a family member. I don't have a close personal relationship with them, and we haven't done business yet, but I'm maybe nurturing them to do business with them. We've got that two-way communication. So they're a contact, right? So they're a contact. We have two-way communication, but we haven't done business yet, and they're not really in that inner circle yet, right? Some people would consider these maybe nurturers inside of your database, or people who, people who are B's or C's, depending on how you're classifying your database. But that's your MET group. You're going to communicate with your MET group, everyone in that circle. Your allied resources get that one-on-one, right? You're going to go to lunch with them, you give them direct phone calls, all of that. But everyone in that MET group is also going to have a regular touch program, right? A regular communication plan. Remember the law, and communicate with it systematically, right? So everyone inside of that MET group is going to have a 33 or 36 touch plan. We know now it's 36 touches today. And we start that off with a more intensive communication program, right? Which is the 8x8, and we're about to learn about that. Zoom out even more, we have the target group of haven't mets. This target group of haven't mets, well, these are people you want to be in business with, and you're marketing to them. Okay, you're marketing to them in a slightly more elevated way than you would the general public. A great example of a have not met group that I'm targeting would be a farm, a geographic farm. So I'm sending them postcards, right? Maybe they're getting my boomerangs, or maybe they're getting just listed, just sold. That target group might actually be like my social media sphere, right? These are people that I have in that database, but they're not yet Mets, right? But they're not the general public either. They've opted into something, right? So they're in a more targeted group. And the program that we would use there to stay in touch with them is a 12 direct, which means 12 times a year I'm in direct and I'm directly marketing right to them. And it's usually with a print marketing piece. Okay. Now, the general public and have not mets, that's the biggest circle, right? And it's impossible to define because you haven't defined that as a target group. But this is any general marketing that you're doing, or your prospecting efforts are geared towards moving the general public have not mets into the met circle, right? I'm going to pull you in and cause you to become a Met. Now, prospecting and marketing, let's go back to that, right? This could be, let's say you've got a website and you're doing some SEO or pay-per-click advertising, right? Those are going out to the general public, right? It's a little different than like social media advertising that you can do to a more targeted market. Right. So think big picture here. This is the agent on the shopping cart and the park bench, right? Or the bus bench, rather. So prospecting and marketing activities to the general public. Okay. So that general public probably not living in your database, by the way. So that 8x8 program, when you first meet somebody, it's important to have a little bit of a more aggressive program to get into two-way communication with them. And a great way to do that, and it's spelled out in the book for you, is the 8x8 program on page 146. Okay, here's the skinny on the 8x8. It's 8 contacts over 8 weeks. Right? You can fill in the blanks on how you want to deliver those 8. It could be just like this, or it could be, a combination of text message and social media and pop by and phone call and whatever you want that to look like. But it's 8 in 8 weeks. So it's designed to help increase your mind share right away so that you're rising above the others and engage in two-way contact, right? So that they become a Met. Okay. So think about meeting somebody at an open house. And then over the course of the next 8 weeks, once a week, you have something in front of them that's attempting to make contact so that they can grow inside of your database. And then every Met in your database is going to go on a 33 or a 36 touch. Now, remember, the research for the Millionaire real estate agent was done years and years ago. And while like 99% of what happened then is still effective now, a couple of things have changed. And one of the things that changed is it takes a little bit more to earn mind share with people. And so instead of 33 touches, think about 36 touches a year, right? And the book spells out what could go into that 33 touch program. You can build this out any way that you'd like. I would, there are some really, really great resources as well for kind of some modern versions of this. But think about like your neighborhood nurture campaign being 12 touches, and you know, occasional phone calls or text messages, and then you're greeting them on their birthday, and then they're getting invited to events, and then you're sending out the, you know, the boomerang postcards, and then you've got the Bronco schedules or whatever that looks like, right? And we're going to go ahead and I'm going to show you a format so you can build out your own. That 12 direct we talked about is for your target market, right? Have not mets, but they're my target market. And I'm going to work to increase my mind share with them and engage in a conversation by 12 touches every year. Okay. So on the have not met portion, 12 can be direct mail. There are also other ways to kind of touch somebody like this, depending on how you're in touch with them. Maybe this is, instead of 12 direct mail pieces, maybe this is, you know, 12 emails, or a combination of emails and text messages or phone calls, or maybe it's other items of value. Now, you don't necessarily have to have personal touch with these people. You haven't met them yet. You're not engaged with them. You're looking for an opportunity to have a relationship. And for every 50 people you market yourself to 12 times a year, you can reasonably expect one sale. We know, based on the recent data that's gone out, that that number's actually dropped a little bit over the course of time. So it's not quite as high as it was back in the late 90s and early 2000s. Yet 12 marketing touches a year can still substantially increase the mind share you have with somebody and help bring them into your database. So you can learn more about that on 148 and 149. So let's take a look at these ratios, right? When you've met somebody, it increases the likelihood they'll do business with you substantially, right? So look at these ratios. If I put somebody I meet on an 8x8 and then drop them onto a 36 touch, I have the potential to close 2 transactions for every 12 people in my database, right? Whereas opposed to, if I'm marketing to somebody, I'm just looking at 50 to 1. Now, depending on what type of marketing and prospecting you're doing, those ratios can vary greatly, right? For internet-based marketing right now, I mean, you might be looking at 1 or 2 closed sales for every 100 people in your database, right? Depending on how you've met them, and that ratio looks different still on the met side of the fence, where we're at about 1 in 10, right? 1 in every 10 people in your database annually will have the likelihood of doing business with you. So you can learn more about these on page 187, but we're going to go ahead and start building this out. It's your turn. So remember, we're doing 3 things. We are prospecting and marketing. We're setting up our database and feeding it, and then we're systematically marketing to our database. And so here's a format you can use to build out your lead generation model. And forgive me for just a moment as I am just kind of repositioning my screen, because we're going to have some fun and we're going to do some more drawings. Okay, so trying to decide how I want to draw this out for you guys. Okay, so this is your lead gen model, and it's based off of how many units a year you want to do, right? So it comes from your economic model. So some of you may be familiar with the tool we use at Keller Williams. I'm hoping all of you are, called a 135 or a GPS. And that's essentially what we're going to build out here, is your own 135 platform for putting together your lead generation model. So the first So we're going to go 1, 2, and 3. And so that first priority that we look at was prospect and market. And then we talked about set up a database and feed it. And then we go into systematically market to your database. So inside of each of these categories, we're going to build out the strategies that we'll use. On the first arm here under prospecting and marketing, we'll identify what our prospecting and marketing techniques are. What do we do in our business, right? Let's say, because I used it for a few examples, let's say it's open houses. Okay, it's also my sphere of influence, right? What else am I doing? Maybe I'm also doing Facebook ads to prospect and market, and maybe I'm sending postcards. And perhaps I'm also hitting the phones. Maybe I do some calling, and I do circle prospecting, or I call for sale by owners or expires, right? So it might be telemarketing. So this is where you really get to build the meat of your business. Where's it going to come from? What are the tools you're using for prospecting and marketing? And then identify who are your circles, right? Your first circle of people in your database, and in command, we're going to call these tags, right? Your first circle might be your sphere of influence, and your second might be your allied resources. I've got a bonus for you guys too here. It's not in the course material, but I want you to bookmark page 141. Because it spells out a referral generating program that is awesome, that you can make use in your business. So kind of some bonus material. Read page 141. I promise it's worth it, right? But then after the allied resources, we determined it was our METs. Okay, so METs are somebody who is not quite the sphere of influence yet, but we have two-way communication with them. And we're probably marketing to them to earn the right to do business with them. Okay, and then we had our target market. Just to make it simple, we're going to call those our leads, right? I don't have two-way communication with them yet, but I'm trying to. That could be my farm. It could be the segment of my database where I just haven't had two-way contact yet with, say, Facebook leads or internet leads, or I met you at an open house, but we haven't been in touch since then, right? So you're still a lead. And then we've got kind of the general public, which probably doesn't make it into your database, right? But you're still marketing to them. So what are other pools in your database? I'll tell you, for some people, for some agents, they actually have an agent tag because they are systematically marketing and communicating with other real estate agents for referral-based business, agent to agent referrals, as opposed to referrals coming from your clients. So that might be a segment of your database as well. So you get to decide what those are, but those tags are based off of the model in the Millionaire Real Estate Agent. So if you're going to start with a model and then add your creativity, I would start with those tags. And then we're going to systematically market to them. And so we know 1, 2, and 3 from this group, right? So we know 1, 2, and 3. Oh, let me pull this back up. Sorry. There we go. Come back here. There we go. So 1, 2, and 3. Oh, it really doesn't want to let me do that. Whatever. We'll just do this. So we know that 1, 2, and 3 get that 36 touch. Right? So what goes into your 36 touch? It might be, I'm going to build it out this way, 12 emails. Right? And then do they get what? 4 calls or texts? And then they're getting, you know, maybe 4 or maybe as many as 12 direct mail pieces. If you're doing postcards or boomerang marketing or something like that, they might get those. They might get the happy birthday, the home-iversary, the anniversary. Home anniversary, yeah. The anniversary, the holiday greeting. Etc. They may get your magazine. They may get a pop by. You might invite them to an event. Right? So let's get this up to 36 touches. So we've got 1, 2, 3 with holidays in there. And then if we have a quarterly magazine, they're getting 4 of those a year. Pop buys, maybe they're getting 2 pop buys a year and 2 events that you're going to get to see them at. So that's what, 12, 12, there's 12 more. So there's our 36. We put icing on the cake. They've got 4 of these bad boys, right? So being able to build out those pieces. And then all of this lives inside of your database, right? It was the 4 laws of lead generation that you're systematically communicating with them. You're feeding it every day and servicing all of the leads that come your way. So this is a model that you can use to build out your database, and then you can do some of the math. That's what you'll need your calculator for. How many people do you have in your database? And based on the conversion rates that you saw in the MREA, how many pieces of business will you get? 12 to 2 for your Mets, and 50 to 1 for your target group and your have-not Mets. So that's your homework. Take a look at what's in your database already and do the math and see how much potential business you have in there if you execute on systematically marketing to them every time. All right. Leave this up for just a second if you want to grab it. And then what kind of questions do you guys have? All right. Share with me when you've done the homework what your numbers look like for your database. And then make sure you check out that page. What is it? 141 it's kind of a bonus system on garnering more referrals. So check those out, and we'll see everybody next week. Have fun. We'll see you then. Bye, guys.
Thanks, Anna.